Hey everybody. So in our previous videos, we discussed how waves go onto tracks and tracks get put into segments. In this video, we're going to talk about playlists. And playlists are another building block in this music hierarchy that allow us to play back these individual music segments. You can think of a music segment as kind of like a phrase. And so we can stack these phrases next to each other and hear them in context. So let's do that. So I have two different pieces here. I'm just going to do a little cleanup work on this second phrase that I have. Again, this is Holst, and I haven't set the reverb tail in the segment, so I'm going to do that. I want to make sure to snap to bars and beats, but Wwise doesn't automatically know what the tempo is, so I have to put that in here. So I'm going to put 145, and this Holst Mars piece is in 5/4. So I'll go ahead and set the reverb tail for this segment that I have. So I have kind of segment 1 and segment 2. And segment 1 is just the ostinato. And then phrase 2 is where the horn starts. And what I want to do is I want to have one phrase go into the next, and what I can do is stack them kind of together in what's called a music playlist. So I can select both of these and then create a parent, which is a playlist. Again, I'm right-clicking here, and I'll create a playlist container. And I'll just call this Holst Mars playlist. Now, two parts in making a playlist. One is when I make a playlist, I kind of create this hierarchy, but I have to tell it what order to play in. So this is kind of important. It's something that's you easily forget. It comes in two parts. You have to make the playlist, and then you have to order it. So again, choose music playlist, and we see in the playlist that even though they're in the hierarchy here, they're not in the playlist. So if we want phrase 1 to play, we have to drag it out here to say, all right, phrase 1 plays first, and then phrase 2 plays. And then we can keep building on this, phrase 1, phrase 2, and you can see some other options here. You can loop them too, but let's just play this. And you're going to notice some things. You're going to notice the overlaps. It'll have a little yellow marker which describes what is currently playing. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's see it play. And oh, by the way, make sure that you're highlighted on the playlist here. Because if you're highlighted on phrase 1, it will play phrase 1. So look at your transport control. It will tell you all the time what it's going to play. So for instance, if I go back to the playlist here, I'll see the playlist. Again, make sure you're in the music playlist option. Then go ahead and hit play. Remember reverb tail? Then we go into the second one. That's why they're overlapping, because the reverb tail of this one will continue as the next one plays. So we can also individually loop these, so we can have the first phrase play twice, for example, before it plays this one. So if we do that and play it again, that's the first time. This is the second time through, and then I'll play the horn. And you get the idea. Now, if you choose, you can type in the number here, but if you actually go, I'm going to choose the whole list here, all 4 of these. What I'll do is I'll go down here, and it will choose infinite. So it will play this one, this one, this one, this one, and then bounce back up to the top and play it over and over and over again. A few other things about the playlist. We can choose different blocks, so we can have sequence continuous, which means that it's going to play all 4 of these before kind of looping back up again. But we can create a different group, which is random. So we might have it random step either 1 or 2 first. So when it gets to this, it's going to randomly pick, actually it went to sequence step, but let's do random step. It will randomly pick one of these to play. Sequence random continuous would be, oh, I want to play both, but in a random order. Where random step is like, oh, just pick one of these to play before moving on. So you can go up here and say, all right, I want to randomly continuous for this. So I'm going to delete this one for now. I'm going to kind of go up here and delete this. So random continuous means that it's going to kind of like almost like Schoenberg, it's going to put it in a 12-tone row kind of. It's going to take all 4 of these and then randomly play them in a random order. So if I play this, it started with this phrase first, then it's going to pick a different one, then a different one, until it gets to through all 4, and then it's going to repeat this rand continuous group. And I think I remember accidentally setting one of these phrases. So you may be wondering, well, how come it's playing kind of incorrectly? It's because I set one of the phrase tracks within one of the segments to up 6 dB here. So you can kind of see here, I'm going to go back down to 0, which is in the track itself. So if I open it up and kind of select this track, then I'll get, it was here that it was set before. One of the other things that you're going to notice about segments, and this is sort of the last thing in this video, is that when I created a playlist, the playlist has a tempo, and that tempo is passed down to these segments themselves. So it flipped back to 120. All these phrases are the same. So up here, I can set it to 145 and 5/4, like that. And then it will continue to propagate down through its children right here. But you can override at any time. You can say, all right, well, this segment is different than the playlist, so I'm going to override this, and it's at a different tempo. Note that it inherits from the parent. So the parent object will pass the tempo setting down into the phrases. Because I set the phrases up first, that's why it kind of overrode it once I did the playlist up above. So some interesting things to note here: segments do not loop on their own. You have to put them in a playlist in order for them to loop. So that's a big difference between a segment and a playlist. When I go into the playlist, I set up what order I want them to play in, and then the loop count over here. You might be wondering what weighting is. Weighting is if I want one phrase to play more than another if I'm in random. So if I want this phrase to play, more often, I could actually set it up to play more often. So it kind of adds up all these numbers and then kind of percentages out how they're going to play. So if you wanted one particular phrase to play more often, you could do that. That is about most of the information about how playlists work. Again, you create it in a hierarchy, and then you also need to actually drag out the phrases into the playlist itself. So it's a 2-step process.